All right, good morning. How we doing today? I see Sean Stryker is in there with First Blood this morning. Kapow! I got Jamie and I got Trish with us. Good morning, y'all. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. And today, we're gonna talk about a little commentary. So, I took the day off yesterday. Frankly, I just overslept. I woke up at like a quarter after the show started and said, they can miss me today. It'll be all right. Although, all things considered, running this show, I've been pretty consistently here every weekday morning for, I think it's been almost 4 years now since we switched the format. Originally it was weekly. In fact, I think when we first started, Steve, you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong. I think when we first started, it was bi-weekly. It was every other Saturday night or every other Friday night, early on. And then Cameron and I went to daily about three and a half years ago, I guess. It's been long enough that we've been daily since before the beginning of the last election campaign cycle. So anyway, we have a commentary. Yesterday would have been WTF CNN, and like I've hinted at, I'm kind of backing off at doing the daily branded stuff, the Me More Monday, Taco Tuesday, WTF CNN Wednesday, all except for, because of course Thursdays would be Toter Win Thursday. We used to do that in honor of the constant significant victories of Donald Trump, like eliminating ISIS, almost completely erasing the footprint of the Taliban, nearly erasing unemployment in this country, dramatically reducing our fuel costs and dependency on foreign oil. Good God, what else did he do? Shut down the borders, basically reduced criminal foreign invasion, what your lefties want to call undocumented workers, reduced illegal immigration dramatically. I mean, just win after win after win. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about this morning. Kayleigh McEnany, Trump's former press secretary. So that's why we did Toter Win Thursday. I'll get to Kayleigh McEnany instead. That's why we did the Toter Win Thursday, because, there was a major win every week. Almost every week, Trump whooped somebody's ass and put us just a little bit closer back on the right path. Not least of which among those accomplishments, he wasn't perfect, right? I got twisted up a bit over the whole bump stock ban, and like I've explained on this show before, when Trump did the bump stock ban, it was very, very early in his administration, and I honestly believe that what happened, that the reason he made that mistake, I don't think he was actually interested in the gun grab. I think he made the honest mistake of believing that he could deal fairly with Democrats, that he could offer them a concession, right? He could offer them a minor concession in exchange for a reasonable deal where they didn't take everything that they were trying to take. He did not yet at that point understand that no, the Democrat will never stop until it kills you. It wants you dead. Yeah, I remember that comment too, Steve, that I like taking guns first, due process later, and I'm not even going to try to excuse that with context. Like I said, he wasn't perfect, but he was damn good, and he was a damn sight better than any president we've seen since Reagan at least. And there's a solid... He wasn't as smart as Reagan, but there's a good argument to be made that Reagan made more mistakes, more active mistakes. Which, hey, I mean, right? You see, I've got the Reagan Ranch calendar on the wall back there. taking a look at that. Biscuits and Gravy says never concede to evil. I'm a big fan of the adage that the only thing required for evil to succeed is for good men to do nothing. So anyway, backing off that format now because CNN's beginning to bore me, so the WTF CNN Wednesday it's just not working anymore. Obviously, we do not have Toter wins every week. We have Toter fails every week. That might become a new segment. The meme war is weak right now, and the meme warriors are insufficient today. I would like to see them doing the good work that they did to get President Trump elected. But they're just not out in force the way that they were. The memes have become tepid. And that's in no small part to be blamed on censorship, on big tech censorship. So, as we move forward, I'm going to try to stick to timely topics. And this morning, I do actually have a WTF CNN, but it's more like a the WTF CCPNN, and I make the joke CCPNN like the gag is that CNN is completely co-opted and controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, but it's a little deeper than that. I'm actually going to go so far as to say that entire media apparatus, because it is controlled directly by the Democrat National Committee, is co-opted through the DNC by the Chinese Communist Party. I'm nearly at a point that I'm ready to say that they are not different entities. Right? So, but we're going to look at the CNN article on this first and dig into it a bit. Here's the criticism. Kayleigh McEnany is Gaslighting America by Chris Cillizza. And, I mean, guys, look at this guy. Look at this. I mean, this quintessential beta male. Jesus Christ, Chris. Go eat a piece of meat. Go eat a piece of meat that nobody else is wearing. So he says, on Tuesday night, right here on planet Earth, former Trump White House press secretary Kayleigh McEnany said these words: "When President Trump was president, you didn't see crisis after crisis. You just didn't see it." Yes, she really said that with a straight face. And yes, of course, she was on Fox News with Jesse Waters. Okay. Fox is not your friend. Now, I think that Fox News, if I'm being perfectly honest, when I look at Fox News, here's what I see. Fox News is the left-wing propaganda machine that the rest of the media used to be before the rest of the media was completely co-opted by the Chinese Communist Party and the DNC propaganda mechanism. Fox used to be a conservative news network. Now, they're just slightly to the right in theory of all the other major networks. But the problem with that is that they're slightly to the right of Mao. They're slightly to the right of Stalin and Hitler and Obama and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Now, in fairness, if I'm being perfectly fair, it is not fair to say that Joe Biden is far left. Essentially, Joe Biden doesn't have the cognitive capacity to maintain a political position. Joe Biden is a figurehead, and nobody seriously believes otherwise. Nobody seriously believes that Joe Biden is anything other than a ridiculous figurehead, a puppet for the dramatically radical left-wing agenda of the modern DNC. Okay? He is the curtain behind the man. So of course, Chris Cillizza is going to try and list all of the crises that happened under Donald Trump, and we're going to have a little fun with that. This is the crisis-free administration that McEnany is envisioning included, among other things. Okay, and these are the top hits. These are the things that Chris Cillizza thinks are the major crises that happened during the during the illustrious reign of God Emperor Donald John Trump. Donald, 2 scoops, Trump. Donald Trump being impeached by the House for an attempted quid pro quo with in Ukraine. That's a crisis? You know what, Chris, I'll grant you that one. That is a crisis. That is a constitutional crisis, wherein the members of the House, without evidence, cause, reason, or even a bad argument, right? No, not without an argument. No. With absolute failure to conduct even the most sophomoric arguments, they moved forward with an impeachment. The impeachment, that was a constitutional crisis. Sean Stryker says they can indict a ham sandwich. Yes. That's a good point. Yes, you can indict a ham sandwich. An indictment is not the same as a conviction. An indictment says that a group of people believe that it's possible that a crime exists, at least to the extent to where it is reasonable to investigate that crime further. The Constitution, however, says that the impeachment of an elected official is on the basis of high crimes and misdemeanors, none of which were even alleged. Okay? So, because the whole quid pro quo thing, that is not a crime. Now, there are crimes which involve a quid pro quo, like, for example, threatening to withhold money, what we call extortion, saying, okay, we've agreed to pay you X amount of money to do a thing, but now that you've done that thing that we agreed to pay you X amount of money for, if you don't also fire the prosecutor, I'm going to switch that deal off. Well, that's called extortion, Joseph. Extortion is a crime. Now, also included in quid pro quo would be if one of my clients calls me and says, hey, Chris, will you bring your film crew out and shoot an awesome wedding video, and we'll pay you money based on an invoice after the work is done? Hell yeah. I'll generate X dollars worth of value in video production in exchange for X dollars in actual money. That is also a quid pro quo. And guess what? Completely and totally legal. It's not a crime to trade a quid for a quo. So, even if it were proved that Donald Trump had engaged in the quid pro quo of which he was accused, which I might add was never proved, the action itself was not a crime, to which rises the high bar of high crimes and misdemeanors. It wasn't even a crime, let alone one which rose to that height. The next one on his list, this is freaking hilarious. Y'all saw the show Tuesday? Y'all saw what I was talking about Tuesday? Let me blow this up a little bit so you can read it better. The second one on his list is Donald Trump being impeached again. This is the second crisis. Okay, so remember, these are the greatest hits of crises in the Donald Trump administration, according to this shithead beta cuck. Donald Trump being impeached by the House for his role in the January 6th Capitol riot, an insurrection that left more than 100 police officers injured and 5 people dead. Okay, let's take a moment. This article was published on, yesterday. See that? Yesterday. And this guy says, an insurrection that left more than 100 police officers injured and 5 people dead. Impeached by the House for his role in the January 6th Capitol riot. Okay. I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. The thing that happened on January 6th was not a riot. It was not an insurrection. That was a protest. Did some of it get a little out of hand? Barely. This statement that it left officers injured and 5 people dead? Okay, granted, there were some injuries. It doesn't list the number of protesters that were injured by officers because that number is significantly higher. And they don't want to admit that number is significantly higher. But protesters were pepper sprayed and tased, etc., etc. Of the 5 people dead, 4 of them have been actively disavowed as having been related to the Capitol situation. Right? You had the one police officer that they said was beaten to death with a fire extinguisher, who turns out was never even stricken with a fire extinguisher, was not injured by the protesters on January 6th, and died of a stroke the next day. Now, maybe you can make the argument that he died of that the stroke was somehow stress-induced, and that's probably reasonable. But I would counter that with, brother, if your health is so poor that the stress of a police interaction will cause you to have a stroke, then maybe you're in the wrong field of work. Right? Of the other 3, one was a heart attack, and it was one of the protesters had a heart attack during the demonstrations, and it's not even clear that he was really there and involved in it. It looks like he was just kind of in Washington, D.C. somewhere. So by that standard, you could probably list a few hundred deaths related to the January 6th riot because, believe it or not, people die every day of natural causes. That's a thing that, ready? Happens. You know, every day. That leaves us 2. And I believe both of them were suicides, which people are blaming, which lefties, of course, are blaming on the incident. That one's a real hard pill to swallow. Now, there was one person who legitimately died in direct relationship to the January 6th demonstration. There's one person. That's Ashley Babbitt, who was murdered without cause by a Capitol police officer. Go watch the video, right? The story is that she smashed a window and was climbing through it. Go watch the video. That's bullshit. She was not climbing through a window. She was standing with a crowd at a broken window. Yes, somebody broke the window. The video shows it clearly wasn't her, and at no point in the video does she appear to even... Like, there are people between her and the window. The claim that she was climbing through the window when they shot her and killed her and murdered her holds no water at all. And, by the way, that officer, unlike Unlike wow, I remember George Floyd's name, but I can't remember the officer's name. But unlike the Floyd case, where the officer was clearly acting within the bounds of the law and his duties with relation to a perpetrator who was being hostile, violent, and actually assaulted officers. Unlike that one, that officer was in no way in fear for his life. He was in no way in reasonable fear for his life. He's facing no charges. Chauvin, thank you, Steve. Yeah, Chauvin's being hung up on murder because a felon with 1 metric Panama of methamphetamines and fentanyl in his system had a heart attack and died while in custody. This guy that murdered a pretty little white girl Air Force veteran, nope, because she's on the wrong side. She's on the wrong side of the argument. And then, so Liza, the COVID-19 pandemic raging across the United States. This gets listed as a crisis under Trump. I'll grant you, that is a crisis which did occur while Donald Trump was president. Let's see. Almost immediately, Donald Trump shut down foreign travel, especially to China. Shut down foreign travel. And was pro-mask right up front. Right? These shitbags. This may be Monday's episode. I'm going to talk about the difference between being anti-mask and being anti-mandate, because that difference is important. The difference between being anti-vax and being anti-mandate. These are important differences, and it's not just a difference in your personal position, your political position. It's a difference in your tolerance for the erosion of liberty and freedom. And then he lists 37 people and entities being charged with crimes as part of Robert Mueller's investigation into Russian meddling in the 2016 election, which I can say freely on the internet. I can criticize the election of Donald Trump without fear of repercussions, because the question is not whether or not the 2020 election was stolen. The question is, how involved was Google in that crime? But this show's probably gonna get greased now. Well, I guess I asked the question. I didn't make a blanket statement of fact, and I don't need to. You guys are tracking on what we mean when we say amphibian priapism. So, I was telling my lucha friends here in SoCal, all these Chinese gamblers at Pachanga Casino will be gone soon. That was during the New Year's Eve countdown. Yep. So the Donald shut down foreign travel, and what happened? Immediately, the same Democrats that are demanding that your businesses go under, that we put ourselves into an absolute death spiral of national debt and money printing and inflation, that we murder the Constitution with ridiculous mandates, that we just go ahead and say to hell with the rule of law and grant blanket authoritarian power to every elected official that doesn't happen to be in a legislature. You've granted dictatorial power from everything to everyone from the city manager up. Sorry, guys, I get a little animated. Apparently, I get the hiccups. So, and that's how you just surrender. So no. But to McEnany's point, crisis after crisis under Biden, guys, we're barely over 6 months into this administration. Not only has Biden failed miserably over and over and over again, what's really interesting about it is everywhere that Biden has failed, and it looks like I'm coming up on 8 o'clock. I've got some stuff to handle this morning, so I can't stay here all day. I'd love to hang around a little bit longer, but I'm gonna power through as much of this as I can with you guys before I have to head out the door to run errands. So I want to pop over real quick. Trump has just released this ad. The Trump organization has just released this 1-minute ad. I'm just going to play the whole thing for you.
America is back.
Highest inflation rate in the U.S. The
southern border is collapsing. The climb of COVID infections.
We amplify our power. We summoned a new strength.
This is a recruitment ad.
Should we be embarrassed?
Diplomacy.
Yes, you should be embarrassed.
The Taliban are back. Kabul is not in an imminent threat environment.
The likelihood there's going to be the Taliban overrunning everything and owning the whole country is highly unlikely.
They own the whole country now, the Taliban.
The Taliban are now in complete control of Afghanistan.
Complete chaos.
How did President Biden get this so wrong?
Well, first of all, the mission hasn't failed.
Slow down, everybody.
I can't think of anyone better to lead this operation than
They're just chanting death to America.
You call yourself a president?
Yeah. So that's a nice little summary of what Biden has done. And I see Sean Stryker says, week before gave my promoter an RZ mask, N95 mask with filters for Xmas. InfoWars was covering event 201 in October, etc. Yeah, see, here on the BFM, we were covering the COVID outbreak in Wuhan and the dangers of it as early as end of October, beginning of November 2019, right? We were covering it early, like well before Christmas. You know, most people seem to recall that COVID really started in like February of last year. No, that's when COVID started being argued about on your mainstream media. But those of us who actually read the news, and when I say the news, I don't mean Fox News, CNN. I don't mean glimpsed headlines on Twitter. I don't mean, scanning sites like Drudge Report. Yes, I look at the Drudge Report. I do read the headlines on the major networks to see what they're putting out there too. But guys, there are news networks all over the planet, and they're all on the internet. There's news out there, and it's not all corrupted by state media influence. And I'm not talking about looking for a bias that fits you. Believe it or not, you can find news out there where it's just a list of facts. There is a new virus which has appeared in Wuhan, China. There are concerns that this virus might cause a problem in this way, right? You can just read the stuff, right? Like, you didn't see it on CNN or MSNBC last year, but sure enough, the Chinese and the Indians were fighting on the border a lot last year, right? Sure enough, there were things going on in this world that were not reported on the mainstream news. And if you're not paying attention, then the average American perspective, they like to bitch about how Americans are all xenophobes and ethnophobes, and they don't even use the term ethnophobe correctly. Like, but all you got to do is read things, people. You look at Biden, and the funny thing about Biden's abject failures is, in most of the places that we are seeing real crisis in the world right now, the U.S. border, U.S. inflation, gas prices increasing, food prices increasing, inflation across the board, the recent abject failure in Afghanistan, right? The rise in COVID cases despite masking and vaccination. All of that, everywhere you look at these crises under the Biden administration, what you see, almost without fail, is a crisis that is the direct, immediate result of Joe Biden reversing a Donald Trump policy. The border crisis was an immediate reaction, an immediate consequence of ending the stay in Mexico policy. The inflation crisis was an immediate result of the government. And Trump did a little bit of this too. In fairness, the Congress, the House and the Senate did most of this, but the stimulus checks during COVID, but Biden extending lockdowns, Biden encouraging governors and mayors to extend lockdowns has resulted in the loss of jobs. The extension of unemployment benefits and additional stimulus checks is making it very difficult for anybody to hire anybody. So people don't have jobs, but they're getting paid to not have jobs, and businesses are going under because they don't have people to work. And they don't have people to work because Democrats who have been screaming for a universal basic income in an obvious bid to murder the U.S. economy have just de facto generated a universal basic income. And Trish, it's worse than making folks lazy. I've covered this in more depth in earlier shows, so I'll just give you a quick gloss over. Here's the thing about the checks, right? If you're getting, $1,000 every month or so, if you're getting what amounts to 30 hours a week at minimum wage or close to it in stimulus checks, it's not that you can't find a job that pays more than that. Let's say that my stimulus is the same as getting paid $10 an hour and working 30 hours a week per month for as long as they keep pumping out that money. Well, here's the thing. If I go take a job at $20 an hour and $40 an hour and 40 hours a week, I'm not making twice what I was making on the stimulus money. Instead, I'm making $20 an hour minus the stimulus money after I've paid taxes. So at the end of the day, the $20 an hour to work full time pays not much more, if at all, than just taking the stimulus check or the unemployment check. Right? The unemployment benefits are paying you more than you would take home in a $20 an hour job. And so, of course, the people that are really struggling are the people whose jobs are not worth $20 an hour. And to all the Fight for 15 guys out there, look, guys, it's not that we don't think you deserve to make $15 an hour. It's that the job you do isn't worth $15 an hour. Right? It's not that I think so little of you that I think you're not worth $15 an hour. Let me be clear on that. I think you're worth far less than minimum wage. Now, I have never worked for minimum wage. I have worked at places that pay minimum wage for starting labor. And I have worked in the starting labor positions when I was a kid, when I was a teenager. I have never worked for minimum wage because it has always been my opinion that minimum wage is the point at which the manager says, if I could pay you less, I would. The lowest I've ever earned was $1 above minimum wage because I understood a couple of things. The job that I was going into was not actually worth minimum wage unless I could somehow make the job worth more than minimum wage. Right? So, for example, I went and worked at, okay, 1 year right before summer when I was in high school, I was no longer in the Spanish classes, but my Spanish was very good. Spanish teachers came and talked to me. I just turned 18. I was about to graduate that year. The Spanish teachers came and asked me if I would go on the trip anyway as kind of a backup chaperone because they didn't have a lot of parents that could take the time off and go. And they had none that spoke Spanish very well. And I wanted my mommy and daddy paid for that trip, but I went and got a job at McDonald's to put some spending money in my pocket. I went in and I explained to the manager I said, hey, I'm not willing to work for minimum wage. I want to work for you for 1 month, and then I'm leaving the country for almost a month. I want you to pay me X, and X was actually $2 above minimum wage. But while I'm here, I will use my near fluent Spanish, and I will take all your Mexicans that you've got working back here, and I will train them. I will train them to be better employees in a way that you do not currently have a capacity to manage because you don't have any truly bilingual people working for you. And that's worth the extra $2. And I got the job site, like right there. I actually started that afternoon. And that's what I did. For a month, I trained Mexicans how to run grills and do fries and take orders and all that stuff. Too easy. If you don't bring value to the job, you're not worth the pay. The job of flipping burgers, it costs more for you to do that job than you are worth, unless you can do that job to a high degree of efficiency. So I'm a little off. I've gotten a little off track there. Let me go back to the. We're looking at Biden's failures again, which just real quick. Like I said, I'm just gonna summarize this again. Also, bring value to your workplace. Don't be a drain. Sean Stryker says, email from the other morning received. You may actually have me at a disadvantage there. I'm not sure what we're talking about there, Sean, but I'll double check my email and see if I remember what that. I've been busy as a squirrel trying to shit a pineapple this week, Sean. I really have. So sorry, brother. Anyway, Biden's open borders agenda has created a border crisis. Yes, more criminal aliens than at any point in history, and that number keeps increasing every month. Every month since Joe Biden has been in office has been the worst month on record for criminal aliens coming into this country as hostile foreign invaders, the hostile agents of rogue, hostile foreign governments. Biden tried to suspend deportations, weakening immigration enforcement. Yep. He has obstructed border wall construction. Guys, Biden has shut down border wall construction that has actually already been paid for. He's taken a government construction project which has already been paid for, and much like our up-armored Humvees, mine-resistant all-terrain vehicle packages, and mine-resistant or MRAPs. What does the MRAP stand for? There's a MATV and there's an MRAP. Mine-resistant, ambush-protected vehicles in Afghanistan. All that construction equipment that your tax dollars have already paid for has been left to sit unused, but not only already paid for, but sucking up the continued cost of its existence. Because, I mean, a lot of people watching right now, I bet most of you own a car. After you buy the car, is it free to have it? I mean, do you own it outright and never spend another dime on it? I'm not even talking about fuel cost. Forget fuel cost. Upkeep over time. It costs money to own things, and the more complex mechanical those things happen to be, the more true that is. The more true that statement becomes. Jesus. So, most of this just goes back into the more and more of the border crisis stuff. But 233% in fentanyl seizures at the southern border from this time last year. That's an interesting metric. I'm not going to say it's a bad metric. It's a little bit of an odd metric to examine. Because the increase in seizures represents an increase in traffic. It does not necessarily represent an increase in traffic. An increase in the seizure of fentanyl could could represent merely an increase in the efficiency or success rate of the enforcement mechanism. However, because we've seen such a dramatic increase in the number of criminal aliens coming across the border over the same period, it's not unreasonable to make a logical leap to the result being that there is more trafficked fentanyl than there was a year ago. So, but that's kind of where we are, guys. Joe Biden has a knack for failing at life. He does it consistently. And this, I'm not going to sit here and pull the Obama line that, that administration was scandal-free. No, the Trump administration was not scandal-free. But there was a huge difference between the Obama administration, the Trump administration, the Biden administration. Under Obama and under Biden, you have a friendly media going out of their way constantly and actively to cover up and spin the failures and mistakes of those administrations. And even through the Trump administration, that same media that's friendly to the enemy was actively spinning things against the president, right? Your mostly peaceful protests, right? Your fiery but mostly peaceful protests, right? You look at last week, the fall of Kabul and Kandahar. You've got a CNN reporter that says, well, they're out here and they look so friendly and they're chanting death to America, and it's just kind of bizarre. Oh, it's not kind of bizarre. Here's what's bizarre, sunshine, that you look at people chanting death to America and are able in any context to also say these people seem friendly. But all the while that Trump was in office, that same media apparatus went out of their way to make everything look as bad as it possibly could. I think the clearest example was when they ran all the headlines. It was front page everywhere. The short video clip of Trump dumping out the bowl of fish food into the koi pond, and they ran all these headlines about what an insult that was, and oh, you should have been more patient. And literally 3 seconds earlier in the clip, if they hadn't cut it where they did, 3 seconds earlier in the clip, you see the Japanese minister that he's with do the same thing. Right, like he just dumped the whole bowl of food out. Trump was literally doing the thing that the local national did in the same way that he did it. And somehow our media spun that. Right? We don't even have to go to the question of whether or not he condemned all Nazis. Right? You don't even have to go to that sleight of hand to look at the Charlottesville commentary or the hydroxychloroquine commentary. After that, they told everybody that Trump was suggesting that you need to inject fish bleach into your veins. That's not how that works, guys. So, Kayleigh McEnany is absolutely right. You did not see crisis after crisis under Donald Trump like you're seeing under Joe Biden. Even if you were to very carefully spin the narrative to attribute each of the individual crises that actually did occur under Donald Trump, that being, there was the pandemic under Donald Trump, right? There were a couple of school shootings under Donald Trump. Those things did happen, right? We did run out of PPE at the federal level under Donald Trump. So let's just say for a moment that you can spin all the crises that happened under Donald Trump to make them his fault. There were still a lot less of those than there have been crises under Biden. And the big difference is, despite all the spin that you're going to hear from the enemy, from the mainstream media, from the Chinese Communist Party controlled U.S. state media, despite all the spin you're going to hear from them, every time you look at a crisis under Joe Biden, it is a direct result of something that he has done. Right? You can't point to the Wu flu and say Trump made this happen. That's unintelligible. You can't point to the Las Vegas shooting and say Trump caused this to happen. That's unintelligible. What you can point at is Donald Trump got rid of policies that restricted business owners, and unemployment fell. What you can point at is Donald Trump changed Obama-era fiscal policies, and all of a sudden, for the first time in near living memory, you saw wages rise on average over time. You can go and point to the gas pump and say it was $4 a gallon under Obama, it was $1.50 under Trump, and it was $4 a gallon under Biden. It's not hard to point at the things that happened in the Trump administration and look at the policies of Donald Trump and the Trump administration and say, hey, these policies had positive results. And then come to the Biden administration and point at what's going on in the world, and you can look and see very clearly these problems in the world, the fall of Kandahar, the inflation crisis, the border crisis, et cetera, these are clear and obviously the result of Biden's direct policies. We have not had a less fit or competent president or majority party in all of U.S. history. So, I'm going to leave you with that. Keep in mind, guys, I'll be covering this. I'll be ramping up coverage on this a lot in the coming months and over the next year. The midterms are, the midterm elections are November of next year, which means it's election season again already. We don't take time off from politics in this country. I wish that we would. I would like to see election season be, the 3 or 4 months before the election, before any given election. But pay attention, guys. All politics is local, right? We're not going to fix the country at the top until everybody's paying attention and fixing their governments at the local level. So, y'all be safe out there. Thanks for watching. I love you, and I'll see you tomorrow.